Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk to you guys just very briefly about the squat and the deadlift and how they do contribute to lat development and overall back development. And it's one of the things that frustrates me is that you'll see a lot of people who do understand basic anatomy, but they don't understand the growth and development process, and they look at the function of muscles and they say things like, well, the squats don't work the lats, they don't really work the hamstrings, the deadlift doesn't work the lats or the hamstrings, and honestly, these people would have you believe that these two compound movements, which will put the most meat on you possible, literally work nothing but your quads, glutes, erectors, and abs. That's almost what it sounds like they're trying to tell you, but the reality is, both of those movements can develop your hamstrings, both of those movements can develop your lats, even though we could argue that they may not be the most efficient recruiters of muscle fibers in those. If I were to take a novice lifter and we were to do DEXA scans and muscle biopsies on them, and we had them do nothing but squat and deadlift heavy 3 times a week for 6 months, and we were to go check, I promise you that they would see, on a proper program, they would see a massive amount of development in their lats, a massive amount of development in their overall back, even without doing what would be called direct back work. Now, we could also argue that their squat and deadlift would improve a lot more quickly if they did direct back work, because oftentimes things like the lats, if they are a weak link in those lifts, you will lose stability on those lifts and you will move less weight. And while I personally would argue in favor of the fact that something like weighted pull-ups are probably the best lat builders out there, and no, I don't approve of lat pull-downs. If you do lat pull-downs, you're a pussy. Fuck you. But they are not essential to develop a good back. And I've seen it time and time again. People overthink this stuff and they don't realize that the reason you guys oftentimes need more efficient movements to recruit all the different fibers and functions of a muscle is because of low frequency training and not enough heavy lifting. What you often find is that muscles will completely develop while using movements that are not as efficient, as long as you're doing them heavy enough and often enough. And case in point, and for the record, no, I was not on gear at the time other than my prescription TRT. I was in the normal hormone range, but you guys know I rebuilt from being sick in bed. And I did a 3-month transformation challenge 9 months into my lifting again. And I actually lost muscle in this before and after. And if you look at this before and after, the one on the left, I'm 232 pounds. The one on the right, I'm 198 3 months later. I lost muscle, but you can see my back better, so it looks bigger. My back training up to that point, for that 9 months of rebuilding, was doing squats, deadlifts, and barbell rows 3 times a week. I very rarely went above 5 reps. Most of my training was in the 3 to 5 rep range, and that's what I did for my back. And I had, for 1 year of regrowth in the normal hormone range, my back development was pretty decent there. Now here's a lat spread taken the same day as the one on the right. Obviously, I'm still probably 15% body fat there, so I'm nowhere near bodybuilder levels, but because of the amount of mass I have in my back, it still looks like my back is leaner than it really is. But you can see my lower back, there's still a lot of fat on the lower back there. I rebuilt that back, stimulating it with those 3 movements: squats, deadlifts, barbell rows. I almost never did more than 3 sets of any of those in one session. Occasionally I did 5x5, but it was oftentimes things like 3x3, 3x5. That's how I rebuilt that. But pretty good back development for the body weight and the amount of time back training again. And in fact, my back dominated most of my upper body. It's bigger than the rest of my upper body. If you look there, you can tell my delts and my arms are not up to speed with my back. Powerlifters have no trouble building their back, and it's squats and deadlifts contribute to that massively. And that's the thing that people have to remember when you're talking about these big compounds. They contribute to the overall workload and overall stimulation. Your training of a muscle is not based upon that one lift you do. It is a cumulative effect. And if you are squatting and deadlifting at a very high frequency, 2, 3, 4 times a week, you are getting a tremendous amount of stimulation in a large number of muscles. And all of those muscles will still grow as a result of that, even though they might not be growing quite as fast as they would if you were doing direct movements that target them specifically, but they are still getting growth stimulation from it, and it still contributes to their overall size. And if you do enough big, heavy compound movements frequently enough, you're going to find that the majority of the muscles in your body will grow very quickly off of that, without needing much direct work. And then that's when you can come back through, and anything that's lagging you can do direct work to make up for it, which is only going to be a handful of muscles. So hopefully that clarified that point, and people need to realize that sometimes overall development doesn't require that you pick the most efficient movements to stimulate a muscle from all angles possible to get it to grow very quickly and very large and for it to be very strong, as long as you're getting enough heavy compound movements frequently enough that are hitting it to some degree. Alright guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time. But let me give you guys a bicep shot before I go.